Throughout these days that we'll be discussing Jeremiah, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was just as God's wrath was and as heavy as it is, yet he still had a plan to restore them.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, welcome back to our Vibes Daily podcast, where we are in a series titled Devoted, and you have joined us on day 225. Woo, 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 woo. Here with my good sister Victoria.
Hey y'all.
Yes, and we have the honor to start the book of Jeremiah.
Yes.
I'm super excited. You ready?
I am. Because Jeremiah got good.
I mean, good.
On the next level.
I feel like we always get these books where we have this juicy conversation, right?
So much meat. So much meat and sauce.
Yes, there is so much meat. But before we get started, I want you to go ahead and grab your Bibles and join us in this conversation. We'll be going through chapters 1 through 4 today. And before we start each week, we always like to start off with a good old question so that you guys can get to know us better. And because we're in Jeremiah, we just thought it would be so fitting to ask this question this week. And the question is there a time in your life, specifically in your youth, where you feel like God had called you to do something that was probably beyond your years?
Yeah.
And if so, what was it?
Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't considered really like a youth. I was like a young adult. Okay. So young adult, I was probably like 20. I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad.
Ooh.
And don't me.
Ooh, UC Berkeley. Come on.
Yeah, it was you.
Okay.
Okay, so I went there, and throughout my years, I worked with this thing called like an academic service center. It was kind of like a place where people can go like in the dorm area. So it was like computers and stuff like that. And we offer like programs and like a study space. So I was like a student like supervisor for a couple of those years, but it was my senior year that my boss, who is supposed to be like a faculty type person or like staff at the school, one of her good colleagues, they left, and they were looking for somebody to like be the supervisor of the student supervisors.
Oh, wow.
And so it technically was supposed to be somebody who had like a master's degree and all of that, and they interviewed PhD people.
Yeah.
But they came to me and was just like, hey, we're missing people. And for this last year, do you want to fill in? And we'll have to create a special title for you and a special like position to make it like through like HR to make it okay for like a student to work in that position.
Right.
And so I was a student, but I was in that position. So when I say it was like, oh, I shouldn't even be at this table.
Right.
And I was like even interviewing who the next person would be because I was still interim.
Okay.
And so we're interviewing these people and they have PhDs and they're from Ivy Leagues and they're like, and I'm like sitting at the table. Some of our like our staff meetings, and it's like staff meetings with the board of directors, and I'm just like, why am I here?
Yeah.
But I knew God put me there, and even then, like, I was still able to build community and relationships with like some of my staff and like pour into them, and just even like, I wasn't totally, let me just be honest, I wasn't totally like doing the work of the Lord, okay, and living the work of the Lord, but still being able to like plant seeds of like Christianity in who I served and going to church, although my lifestyle was not. But I feel like if I was in tune with the Lord a little bit more like Jeremiah, I could have some real influence.
Yes.
I could have. But anyways, that was
I love that because I feel like it's one of those uncomfortable situations where you kind of fake it till you make it. You like, listen, I don't know how I got here, but we gonna, put on the face and I'm gonna learn as I go, or whatever the case may be. And I feel like those are the moments where you're that like on paper you may not have seen qualified, but God called you to be there.
Sure did.
So
Yeah.
That's super cool. But yeah. So speaking of, like, I can relate to that because I can't wait to get into this first chapter to talk about it. But
Yeah.
I remember specifically there was a time I was in my, I would say early 20s, and I was working in a youth ministry, and I would typically the part of the ministry that I was a part of, which is like the face of the church. So like whether it was like our greeters or our people that do merchandise, like that's typically was my area. But there was this moment where the youth pastor asked me to preach.
And
I was like, me? Preach? What are you talking about? And literally what's crazy is, and this is a true story, I remember in my mind I was saying like, but I barely know how to talk. I'm like, I use a lot of slang. Like I'm not always the most like correct person with my speech. And I remember just feeling this overwhelming insecurity of like, how am I going to talk to God's people when in my mind, like I'm just so insecure about like how I would communicate. And he took me to Jeremiah chapter 1. And I'm not going to give out y'all all the details because we're going to get into it. But the scriptures, literally verbatim, what I said
was what he said,
was what Jeremiah said. And then to see God's response to that. And the thing that really, really helped me in that moment was knowing that as long as I say whatever the Lord tells me to say, I have nothing to worry about.
Nothing.
And literally, if nobody likes it, they got to take it up to the Lord because he told me to say it.
What?
And all I'm saying is his word. And so that was like just a pivotal moment in my life because it really laid the foundation of how I continue today to share God's word and his truth. And just always remembering that because of that experience. So,
awesome. I love that. That's so good. But wait, hold on. Fun fact. Did y'all know that the first time I saw Shamika was when her now husband sent me the video of her preaching on the slide and was like, tell me what y'all think about this sermon. But it was Shamika. And so I looked at it a little bit and I was like, okay. But I didn't get a chance to finish it before he was able to tell me, you remember that video I sent you a couple weeks ago? He was like, well, I'm talking to this girl and I just want you, I want you to like see.
Fill her out for me.
Yeah, I want you to like see.
Yo, this is the first time I'm hearing this story. I did not know Dylan sent y'all the sermon. And it probably was a sermon at the youth ministry that I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like,
I think it was that one.
That is so crazy. I did not know that he showed y'all that. But
I seen her walking across this big old stage. I saw it, girl.
Y'all, and that was scary because I remember like I had all the reasons why I didn't want to do it. And I remember saying like, Lord, can I just like speak from the floor? Like I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. But man, God is good though. And it was the thing that showed me my gifts.
Yeah, and he gonna have you back on that stage.
Oh,
come on. Anyway, the Lord showed.
Come on.
Showed you, girl.
Come on.
All right, so we gonna jump into it though.
Yeah, man.
Because we can do this all day.
We sure can. But yeah, I'm super excited. We're like we said, we're going through chapters 1 through 4 today, and Jeremiah is the writer of the book, and he was a young kid, and I don't even know. Do you know how old he was during this time?
I don't.
Like, I just know that he was young, and although we've kind of in our reading thus far past this moment, we're kind of going back in time, if you will, to before the exile. Right. So
right before the exile. Yeah.
So yeah, anything that stuck out to you, even just in this first chapter as we go through the book?
Listen, I mean, can we just jump off of verse like 4 or 5? Like, can we just go there?
Yep.
Because this whole I chose you before I formed you in the womb. I set you apart before you were born. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. When I say this was so good to me, because when I read this, normally it was like, oh, God knew him before, right? In the womb, right? Like, oh, he knew us. But it was like, I knew you and I already gave you like a position, a mission, a ministry. And to me, it was like, oh, Lord, like I could come into this world just doing whatever I wanted to. And that'd be not what I was created to do.
Ooh, that's good. No, that's real. I like that because I think these scriptures are often encouraging to, even if we was to apply it to ourselves, like, man, God knows me, like he sees me.
Yeah.
But I love that you pointed out the calling portion of it, because I even put in my side notes, I'm like, what an honor it is to be chosen by God.
Yeah.
For such a heavy task too.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just for play, just little, like, no, he said a prophet to the nation.
To the nations.
Literally.
Not even to your block, not just to the Israelites, to the nations. That's crazy.
Yeah. And in a time where, and we'll continue to see in the scripture, where they was wilding.
Ooh.
So what he's going to say is going to ruffle some feathers, and it's not going to just be kumbaya and everybody's like getting along. They're like, yeah, we love you. Like, yes, tell us more. Like, they were not in a space where they were thirsty to even hear what God had to say.
No. But he still was going to send him.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man.
I think that was so good, because when I even just look at this, like in this mission that he was to do, I don't know. I was just like, whoa, what if he said no? What else would you be doing for your life?
That's real.
Like something that you were not equipped to do. But yeah, I love the equipping that he gives him in like the verse 8.
Yep.
Right?
I was going to point that out.
Get it.
No, I was just going to say, like,
that up for you.
I just feel like, he's silly. I just feel like God gave him just like a little test, if you will, or a test run of like, just even asking the question, like, what do you see? I felt like God was just opening up his eyes and his mind to like learn how to discern, and even teaching him how to interpret certain things too.
Yeah.
Where, he's showing him these visions and all these different things. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I don't know if that started off in 8, in those verses, but that was something that he ended up doing. And talking about like, oh, I see the branch of the almond tree, that's in verse 11, and like all that stuff. That's kind of like what I wanted to point out, was like, man, like, God didn't just like really throw him out there for real. He's like, I'm gonna have this moment with you and I to like show you that, one, you have eyes to see.
Yeah.
And that's a gift in itself. And I literally am going to give you the words to say.
Yep.
So like, there's no excuses, like how Moses, like, don't try to say like, I'm too young and I don't know what to say and because the truth is, if, let's just say you didn't know how to do all that stuff, it probably would have been a thing where you would have given yourself credit and not me.
Ooh. Yeah.
So, in your deficiencies,
all of them.
Give me that. That is exactly the person perfect candidate, because I know that you're going to rely on me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I needed that. And I mean, that's what I love, is the progression of, Lord, I can't. I don't know how to speak. I'm too young. The excuses, like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
The excuses. And then he's like, Lord's like, don't say that. And he straight up tells him, like, don't say that.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't be afraid. I'm going to be with you. And then, like you said, he walks him into this, like, okay, now let me teach you.
Yeah.
I'm teaching you. I'm going to show you something. Now tell me what you see. Like, just like a teacher, right?
Yes.
Now tell me what you see.
Yeah.
Okay, now he's grading the test. Like, yes, that's exactly what I showed you.
Yep.
Right? And to just even confirm, this is what it looks like when I'm showing you something and when it comes from me.
Ooh.
And then I'm going to confirm to you whether or not you're discerning correctly, like you said, because I've given you the eyes for that, right? And you know what? Also, let me even just backtrack to like verse 9. What stuck out to me is that in verse 9, it said, the Lord reached out his hand, touched my mouth, and told me, I have now filled your mouth with my words. Very jumped out to me, because Isaiah had a similar experience, but it was
with the coals.
With the coals.
Yes.
But it was an angel who came and took. Now the Lord himself touched Jeremiah's mouth. That's crazy to me.
Wait a minute. No, that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about, I didn't even think about that. But I do love like this imagery of this moment that they had, and how I feel like it was this ordination that we got to see, if you will. You know?
Yes.
Like him becoming ordained, just as if God was pouring oil over his head. Like, okay, the time is now.
Yep. I'm going to touch your mouth.
Oh,
Yes.
man, that's so good.
It is. I'm like, Lord, I'm ready.
Right. Not puckering up the lips like, come on.
Oh, so
Clean my mouth. Lord, put your words in my mouth.
Lord.
No, that's real. Further down in the scripture, it
Mm-hmm.
talks about specifically like just God affirming him to like, hey, don't be afraid. Like there's protection that you're gonna have
Yeah.
with this calling.
Yeah.
I think that this is so important to know because later on in the scriptures, we will see him kind of encounter his enemies and knowing that they're plotting against him and all this stuff. And I think that the fact that God laid it out in the beginning and already kind of like laid down the foundation, right? Like this is something that he's going to have to cling on, and even us like cling on to when it's like, no, when God says he's going to protect you, even when things don't look like, it's going your way. Like his word, like he's true to his word. So I do love that. Like he affirmed him in that, like, yeah, I got you. Like there's nothing going to be able to overcome you as long as you say what I tell you to say. Like you're going to be good. And you made me think about this earlier too, with the whole like Jeremiah repeating what he saw. In this time, there was a lot of false prophets.
They were. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it could have also been a test for God to see, okay, are you going to fabricate what you see? Are you going to add on? Are you going to
corners? Yep.
Exactly. And I think, he passed the test. There was just this purity I saw in him having this conversation with God. So yeah.
And just the last part, because I know we're going to be on chapter 1 forever, but just the last thing to add to that though is like it showed me the why the Lord did and Jesus did say like let the children come to me, and like because there's something about a child's heart or a young person's heart, right, that is not want to just be pompous and go on their own, like that will follow the teaching, right, or be hungry for someone to lead them and guide them, right. And so I love that. And so to me it's just like, when my kids say something, I'm perking up.
Right.
Because the Lord can use anybody. I'm like, so what you say? I mean, there's some stuff that come out of Blake's mouth that I'd be like, okay, I need to put that in the back pocket because he might be on to something.
Right. No, that's real. I do love that you point that out because I think, oftentimes it is easy even for elders to feel like, oh, well, age plays a factor in whether or not there's wisdom.
Right.
And it's just not true.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Mine's is titled Israel Forsakes God. And God about to bring the heat.
Guns blazing.
He is. So I feel like we're about to get to know just more and more why God is calling Jeremiah and what it specifically he wants him to do. But anything in chapter 2 that sticks out to you?
Yeah. I mean, even just like, I just mentioned this like follower, like the follow the leader type thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like verse 1 really stuck out because it was just like, hey, I remember the loyalty of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness in a land not sown. And it was like, when you were younger, you followed me.
Yep.
You got older and you strayed.
Yep.
Can that be the testimony of us though? Like that's the testimony of my life. Like I was young, and I think I said, I loved the Lord when I was younger, and then I played loving the Lord, and then I just was like, I'm out, Lord. Yeah, choose somebody else. I ain't living this life. I'm not doing this. But like it was like. And verse 5, he says, what fault did your fathers find in me that they went so far from me, followed worthless idols and became worthless themselves? Like, this strain. Like, what did I ever do to you?
And I feel like, man, like I could just feel God's emotion in that because it's just like, the heart. It's like, he's literally like, what did I do? Like, all I did was good things for you. I provided a land, that was filled with milk and honey. Like, I protected you. I brought you out of slavery. Like, even in the moments where you asked for, manna or all these other stuff, like all I did was provide. Yeah. And what did I really do to deserve this?
Yeah, to be cheating on like this.
Exactly.
I was the perfect partner.
There was some. I feel like there was just so many bars that I was like, "Dang God!" Like the way that you said that sound, it just hit different.
It hit.
But yeah, man, it's crazy, and even to see how it talks about how the priests were acting.
That part.
In verse 8.
Verse 8, yep.
Yep. The priests did not ask, "Where's the Lord?" Those who deal with the law did not know me. And the leaders rebelled against me. The prophets prophesied by Baal.
Of all people.
Following worthless idols. Whoa.
I'm like, how Baal stick around? How Baal still around?
I mean, still living strong because of y'all. like
how?
No, for real. You would think that this was a long gone. Okay, they realized that there's no fruit really in worship, but no, Baal is still bailing, and it's just crazy to see how like they were so far from God.
Yeah,
didn't even know Him.
Yeah. Because this is the thing that tripped me up when I was reading like Kings and Chronicles, when there still was a temple and there still were priests. It didn't even dawn on me until like a little ways in. I was like, oh, even the priest was tripping. Like it made me think like when I was reading it, like, oh, it's just like the people, like the common people.
That's what I be thinking. Yes.
Yeah. But like back then there was something that stuck out to me. I was like, oh, the priest is tripping too. And now, of course, Jeremiah and Isaiah have been busting them out, like, your prophets are, like you said, false propheting.
Right.
The priests are not even calling on the Lord. So I'm like, so what y'all doing in the temple? What y'all doing in there?
It's like it's almost as if they were just there for the position,
the show.
Yeah. And for the clout or recognition. And I'm like, yeah, but what, for real, what was y'all doing?
The big breast of the chicken. That's what they was there.
They was eating good.
They was there for the food.
Oh, they is showing out, man.
Oh, no, Lord.
It's literally crazy.
Yeah.
And I just love how God continues to point out that the same gods that they're worshiping are things that they had to make with their own hands.
Yeah. Listen, he's like the foolery guy.
He said, make it make sense.
What verse was that?
He's like,
oh yeah, come help me understand. Come help me understand that, like, y'all and these worthless idols.
Yeah.
In verse 11, it says you're for useless idols that they're exchanging stuff. Like, this is so crazy. But yeah.
And sorry, I was going to say, because you were in verse 11, I love how, like, my verse 11 says, has a nation ever changed its guise? And he's just pointing out that, like, there's no loyalty. Like,
none.
I am the one and only true God, and you're just switching up, going from God to God, and like, okay, then when you get down to the lowest of low, then you want to call out for me, and then you go into another God. And I'm just like, yeah, like, he's really calling everything out.
Yeah. And to me, even that verse, when he said that, was like, it said to me kind of like, look at all these other nations that y'all flocking after. They're at least committed to their gods. But mine says in parentheses, but they were not gods, right? They're at least committed to their foolishness over there, right? Like, you don't see the Philistines hopping on everybody else's gods.
Right.
They're committed. What's up with y'all?
Yep.
I'm the one true God, and y'all not even committed.
Yep.
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Man.
But then the fact that they said in verse 18, he's just like, now, what will you gain by traveling all the way to Egypt to drink the water of the Nile? What will you gain by traveling all the way to Assyria to drink the water of the Euphrates? And that was kind of like, I think Eric pointed it out last week, was like, they went to Egypt of all places. The disrespect.
I mean, so disrespectful. You mean to tell me I done brought you out of this land and now y'all going to them?
Nah.
Why not come to the God that even rescued y'all?
It's like, listen, you done were telling me about how dude was doing you foul.
Right.
For so many years, I rescued you. I done put him away. And all of a sudden, you running back to dude.
No.
This don't make no sense.
It doesn't. And I feel like, I think I had mentioned this too when we had this conversation about that. I don't think I even realized that they were even doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my mind, I just felt like they were just staying, they was of course wilding out and just doing what they wanted to do, but that they just kept it within the land that they were in. But no, to know that they were going back. And I don't know what chapter it is, but we'll probably get to it if it isn't today, where they even went to those different places to get the material to even create the gods. And it's just like crazy.
It is.
It's crazy, but yeah, I just feel like, man, like God is really upset. And even how it says in verse 20, long ago you broke off your yoke and tore off your bonds. You said, I will not serve you. And I was thinking about that one scripture where Jesus is saying, like, you know, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And just that imagery of being like really connected and tied to God. And he's like, yeah, like y'all have completely separated yourselves from me.
Yeah.
And have gone on your own ways, and it's really sad.
It is. It is. And like, I know this one's a long chapter, but in verse 29 it says, why do you bring a case against me? All you have rebelled against me. This is the declaration of the Lord. And so I turn over to 35, but he says, but in spite of all these things, he starts talking about how, you know, frivolous they are, like a woman, right? Who's just going out doing whatever. It's like, in spite of all these things that they're doing, you claim I'm innocent. His anger is sure to turn away from me, but I will certainly judge you because you have said I have not sinned. And I think that's the hard part for him. It's like, you're doing all these things, and then you're looking at me like, what did I do? Like, I didn't do anything. Like, I'm not at fault. This the Lord. Like, and that's hard because when we were in like Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy, we were looking at all those laws. Like, there were so many laws.
So many.
Like, so how can you say you ain't done nothing when you
can't find one thing?
You can't find one thing in this list, on these 3 books.
For real. And I don't know if that was just speaking to their arrogance or pride. And I'm assuming that they were probably just being really just haughty about it. But I also was like, dang, like, what would it feel like to be a person that really felt like you did no wrong?
Right.
Like, I was like, actually.
Right. Because at one point they lost the book of the law. And remember in King Josiah, around the time that Jeremiah was coming around, they found it like, hey, guys, there's some.
Let me blow the dust off of this book and like, oh, okay, yeah, like, here is this, you know, this valuable word. So.
And that's probably what we do with this book, honestly.
Yep.
Like, just collecting dust somewhere, not being read, and we just living life like, I'm a pretty good person.
Right.
I'm pretty good. Like,
I go to church. You know, I'm
not mean to anybody. I don't kill. I don't murder. I'm faithful. You know, I'm good. You know, just do me. Just doing me. But then at the same time, like, there's a whole book of ways that we're supposed to be living that we're not paying attention to. Yeah. That's scary.
Yes.
That's scary.
Literally. And that does bring it back to like today's day and modern day of what it looks like to be a Christian that is super complacent and that is just staying in your bubble and not really being challenged to do things that God has called you to do. It is scary. So one of the things I did want to mention, and this isn't going into chapter 3, where I love this kind of analogy that God was given in the first verses, where he talks about like, if a man divorces his wife and she leaves him and marries another man, like, should he return to her again? And like, he was just showing them in a practical way what it looks like to like really be cheated on and to break a covenant being broken. And he's like, do y'all deserve to go back to, like, after being cheated on and like all these different things, like, should I forgive you? Like, should I come back and, like, you know, restore you? And I know we hadn't probably mentioned it today thus far, but one of the biggest reasons why God is about to bring on this wrath, which we see Jeremiah talk about in these chapters, and he's really about to make these cities and places just go to waste, is because they did not listen to his commands and his law, and they really rejected him, and they rebelled against him, and they refused to repent, and they did so many different things that, it's to the point where it's like, you guys have completely disregarded me, the one that is supposed to be your God, and you are supposed to be a holy nation.
Yeah.
And so, I just thought it was just eye-opening to see him express it in that way.
Yeah, he really did. Like, I feel like he just continued to express it like that and lay it out to them, like, over and over. Like, this is why. There was, like, no secret of why he was doing these things or was about to be doing these things.
Yeah.
And I love that you pointed out this relationship, because it was like, in verse 1, so you have prostituted yourself with many partners. And that part in verse 2, it starts going into, like, you were, like, not just forced into this, you was looking, like, you was sitting on the side of the highway, looking for other places to go and looking for other people to be with, right? In terms of other nations, right? And so it's like, this is why the showers haven't come. And it says you have the brazen look of a prostitute and refuse to be ashamed. And I think that's what we were just talking about, like, acting like you've done nothing,
right?
But I love to parallel that what he said in verse 1, like you said, like, can you even return to Lord? Like, will I even take you back? To verse 12, where he says to Jeremiah to go proclaim these words to the north and say, return, unfaithful Israel. This is the Lord's declaration. I will not look on you with anger, for I am unfailing in my love. This is the Lord's declaration. I will not be angry forever.
What in the world? Even in that, he still wants and desires them and is giving them a way to come back to him. That type of pursuit you don't find often.
No,
literally, like, you're not gonna find that just everywhere.
They don't make them like that.
Yeah, and I think they don't. They literally don't. And I feel like throughout these days that we'll be discussing Jeremiah, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was, as just as God's wrath was and as heavy as it is, yet he still had a plan to restore them.
Absolutely.
And I am
just crazy.
Always so mind blown to even see that and to hear that, because I'm just like, a nation that was unfaithful to you. That there's a few verses that says this, but that he said, you guys have more gods than y'all have towns. Like, Judah.
I remember that one. I remember that. That was bars.
Oh, I said, whoa. Yes, that was literally bars. But like, imagine whatever, big cities, and they have all these different towns, like these numerous amount of gods, which means these numerous amount of partners. That they, prostituted themselves to or committed adultery against God. Yet God, in his loving kindness, is still like, I'm going to take you back. And I'm going to make you white as snow again. It's crazy.
That is ridiculous. Because, and this is what saddens me, that a lot of us, and I have myself, over the years, looked at this Old Testament and thought that this was the wrathful God. And that the New Testament was the graceful Jesus. Now we stepped into grace once Jesus came. Like, no, this is full of grace.
Literally.
Like, when I look at that, the wrath comes after years and years and decades of the Lord pleading with these people, please,
for sure,
turn back to me. I want to be in a relationship with you. You're dirty, you're filthy, but I will take you back if you turn to me and follow my ways and leave your idols. Like, but they just never did these things. And so at some point, he's like, enough's enough. At some point, he will be a terrible father if he never disciplined his child.
That's so true. And if he didn't keep his word originally which is what he always said, the commands. The commands. Like, all right, you start doing these things, you start straying from me, there's going to be consequences, but I'm always going to give you a way to always come back to me. And it's literally Yeah, it's so wild to see. But I love that. Again, like before, because this is actually my first time reading Jeremiah in its entirety. Like, just knowing how we started off today, like, and to know what's coming after this, but also the grace that still lies in between these. Like, I hope that none of us miss that, is that there's still these sprinkles of mercy that we'll see in the text, mercy, you know, and grace, where God is just like, he's being a just God, but he also is a loving God that still desires, and he's going to keep his covenant and promise with the Israelites. So
I love that you said that, though, that he had to keep his word and still discipline them, because he told them these things would happen. He even told Moses that the people were going to rebel.
He sure did.
And that they were going to leave him, and then that eventually he would bring them back to him. He told Moses also all this, like you said, is talking about, like, I said this was going to happen, and it's happening. And I love this lament of Jeremiah, verse 12, that he starts to do. He said, "Oh, the pain in my heart," in verse 19. "Oh, the pain in my heart. My heart pounds. I cannot be silent." But it continues on. In verse 23 is where I wanted to really stop. And I feel like these like the words of like the Lord, right? Like, I looked at the earth and it was formless and empty. I looked to the heavens and their light was gone and stuff. I looked, and this is verse 25. I looked and there was no human being. All the birds of the sky had fled. And it was kind of like, yikes. Like, at some point it's just gonna be, you know,
right? He may not bring the flood back, but he got to
demolish him.
Exactly. Like, y'all done took him back to that place of, I can't even save like a certain, you know,
one person,
because literally, if not, this is going to happen again. So yeah, man, I've really it's already good, it's already juicy, but there's still so much to apply. But
so much.
Before we close out, I just want to make sure, was there anything else you had?
No, I'm good. But like you said, please do the readings, because we skipped a lot of juiciness, and there's more. There's always more in this text.
There sure is. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll be picking back up on tomorrow. And we'll still be in Jeremiah. So go ahead and tune in with us tomorrow. But we'll see you later.
Thank you for joining us for the Vibes Daily Podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or download our favorite, the Vibes Church app. Visit vibes.church/devoted for additional episodes, notes, details, and the latest merch. Join us next time as we continue our journey through the Bible. Take good care.